My name is Claire Whitaker, and I'm 29. When I signed the closing packet, my hand didn't shake, but something inside me did. A tiny aftershock from 7 years of saying no. No to trips, no to impulse buys, no to the kind of weekends you only remember through photos. The house isn't grand. 3 bedrooms, one slouching maple out front, a driveway that needs sealing, and an air vent that hums like a nervous habit. Still, when the keys slid across the table into my palm, they felt heavy, the way earned things feel heavy. The first voicemail came the next day. "Honey, it's Mom," said Elaine Whitaker, voice already frayed. "We need a favor, just a small one." The second voicemail, Robert, Dad, sounded practiced, calm, like he'd been elected to say what Mom couldn't. "Your brother, Dylan, it's a housing transition. We can't keep him at the condo. He needs a place to store his things. A few weeks, that's all." Dylan Whitaker, 31, is the kind of storm that arrives with a nickname. Rough patch, bad timing, market downturn. In our family, he is a cause, and the world is always the effect. "Storage only," I said when we finally spoke. I'm saying that out loud 3 times. Temporary, temporary, temporary. "He heard you," Mom promised. "You're a good sister." The U-Haul sighed into my driveway like a tired animal. I braced for boxes. Instead, Dylan and 2 buddies, Tyler Brooks among them, unloaded a life. Sectional couch, queen bed frame, dresser, rolling garment rack, blender, air fryer, dumbbells, and the crown jewel, the 65-inch TV that's been the leading man in all his posts. Dylan moved like a foreman, pointing, delegating, barely looking at me except to say, "This is a lifesaver, Claire," like the favor had been pre-agreed in some meeting I missed. "I need the water heater and electrical panel accessible," I said, arranging boxes with the strange gratitude of a person who believes that access can't be argued with. He had more possessions than I did. Designer sneakers in careful stacks, a gaming console worth more than the down payment on my sanity, a soundbar that promised cinematic immersion. It struck me that ownership isn't proof of stability. Sometimes it's camouflage. When the last dolly thumped into place, Dylan stood back and let his eyes do that thing, claim and bless all at once. "Perfect," he said. I repeated storage. He nodded, agreeable as a cat when you tell it not to jump on the counter. At the stairs, I paused. The spare key was warm in my hand. "This is for grabbing your stuff when I'm not home," I said carefully. "It's not a hangout key." He grinned, pocketing both metal and promise. "Totally." It's his favorite word because it doesn't say anything. The first week, he swung by. Jacket pickup, forgot my headphones, needed that one cable. Each visit ended with him settling onto the couch he'd labeled storage. Lights dimmed, controller in hand, that giant TV turning his face into moonlight. From the top of the stairs, I'd say his name, and he'd toss a friendly look over his shoulder. "Just killing time. Tyler's got people. I'll be out of your hair." Time is elastic when someone else is stretching it. "Are you actually okay with this?" Ethan Cole asked. Ethan is my boyfriend, and if steadiness were a person, it would wear his sweater and smell like his aftershave. He watched the floor vent as bass from a game menu pulsed up like a second heartbeat. "Weird question," he added, "but your house has started to feel inhabited." "It's storage," I insisted. "A few weeks." "And the power bill?" he asked lightly. He wasn't worried about dollars. He was worried about drift. I found myself describing Dylan the way you describe a stray you want to feed without adopting. He'll be gone soon. Even as I said it, I knew how hope can double as denial. The next afternoon, I stood at the bottom of the stairs where cement turns to carpet and hospitality turns to rules. "We need to be clear," I told Dylan. "Temporary storage. If you want to hang out here, it's by permission, with boundaries, and there's a timeline." "Totally," he said, hands spread. The peacemaker of a war he started. "Interviews are lining up. The market's rough, you know." He gestured to the TV. "This just helps me decompress." I took in the open pizza box, the blanket thrown over the couch like a flag of occupation, the surge protector audibly sighing under load. A small chill walked my neck. Rooms settle differently when they believe they belong to someone. That night, I opened a new album on my phone. Basement. Evidence. I took wide shots. The couch against the wall, the TV angle, the outlets. It felt extreme until it didn't. Mom called as I was renaming files. "We're so proud of you," she said. and I could hear what was coming. Praise curving toward obligation. Your brother's had a tough year. Share your blessings, sweetheart. Blessings aren't a Costco sheet cake, I said before I could stop myself. They don't need slicing. Silence. That didn't sound like you, she whispered. By week 2, Dylan's rhythm had become part of the plumbing. Mid-morning arrival with coffee in a to-go cup he never threw away. Afternoon, grab and go. Evening. Just a bit that slipped past midnight. Twice I came home to find him already inside. Because, key. The second time I reminded him to text first, he nodded solemnly, then forgot, then apologized for my tone. Being kind and being clear aren't opposites, Ethan said, rolling up his sleeves to tackle the dish pile that somehow multiplied when Dylan visited. I nodded like a student who planned to ignore the homework. Friday, the street outside looked like a party had checked in. 3 cars I didn't recognize. Laughter rose from the basement window well. Inside, I found a poker game arranged on a folding table I certainly didn't own. Chips clicked. A cooler sweated on the concrete like it was earning a wage. I stood at the landing long enough to be seen and not long enough to be dismissed. This isn't happening again, I said when the hand ended. You were at work, Dylan said, as if the absence of my body was consent for the presence of his guests. We're not upstairs. This is my home, I said evenly. Even as a weapon if you hold it steady. No guests without asking. And if I say no, it's no. His smirk was gentle, practiced. You're being intense. After they left, I traced a cord from the TV to a stressed multi-plug octopusing, an outlet that had not agreed to a family of 6. I pictured sparks in the dark, insurance forms, a firefighter asking who lived down there. My scalp prickled. I unplugged the strip and set it on the table like evidence. Hey, Dylan called up, offended. Don't mess with my setup. My outlet, I said, my risk. He shook his head, amused. You gotta relax, Claire. At 2:13 a.m., I added a line to my log. Gaming noise, laughter, voice chat. 2:13 to 3:01. Resumes. 3:09. Severity. 7:10. It read like a petty diary and also like something that would one day save me. The next morning, I printed house rules, 1 page, plain font, and taped it to the inside of the basement door. Storage only. No overnight stays. No guests. No appliances without written permission. Entry by text plus reply only. At the bottom, I wrote a date by which everything not in a box would be gone. The house felt like it inhaled. My hand shook just enough to make the numbers look human. Around noon, my doorbell pinged the camera. Motion detected. The feed showed Dylan shouldering a flat pack box, something desk-shaped, smiling past the camera at someone I couldn't see. His other hand dangled my spare key. I tapped record and stood very still, listening to a small sound that meant everything. Metal sliding into metal. The sound of temporary learning how to last. I should have known the first rule of boundaries. They don't work if the other person doesn't believe in them. It was a gray Tuesday when I came home to the sound of furniture scraping against concrete, the kind of sound that tells you someone is moving in, not moving out. I froze halfway down the stairs, hand tightening around the banister. There was Dylan, sweat glistening under the basement light, and Tyler Brooks, his old friend from college, awkwardly holding one end of a bed frame, a full-size one, with a brand-new memory foam mattress still in its plastic wrap. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice clipped. "Why is there a bed in my basement?" Dylan blinked innocently, like a child caught halfway through eating the cookies. "Tyler's girlfriend's moving in with him," he said, brushing hair from his forehead. "It's been awkward. I figured since my stuff's already here, I could just crash a few nights until I find something else." "Absolutely not," I said before I could even breathe. "This is storage, Dylan, not a guest room, not a crash pad." Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear. "Sorry, Claire," he mumbled. "He said you were cool with it." "Yeah, she's fine with it," Dylan cut in quickly, a hand raised to calm Tyler. "She just didn't know yet." "Get it out," I said firmly. "Now." Dylan's jaw tensed, and I saw something shift behind his expression. A flicker of annoyance, maybe defiance. Then, without warning, he pulled out his phone and hit a contact. "Mom," he said, loudly enough that his voice echoed off the concrete. "Claire won't let me put a bed down here. I guess I'll have to sleep in my car tonight." I felt the blood rush to my face. "Dylan, don't—" Too late. Mom's voice filled the room through speakerphone. "Claire, what's going on? Your brother doesn't have anywhere to sleep." Because this isn't a bedroom, Mom, I said, trying not to yell. We agreed. Storage only. Oh, honey, it's freezing at night, she said in that tremor-tinged tone that could melt steel. What's the harm in letting him stay just a few days? You've got all that space. You're not even using it. Mom! Then Dad's voice chimed in, the backup artillery. Claire, we raised you to have compassion. You have a steady job, a home. Dylan's going through a rough time. Compassion. The word landed like an accusation. I wanted to say I'd been compassionate when I said yes in the first place. That kindness wasn't a blank check. But I knew that tone, when both parents teamed up, discussion wasn't part of the equation. Guilt was. Fine, I said quietly. 1 week, 7 days, and I'm writing it down. Dylan smirked. Relax, it's not like I want to live here. I wrote up a handwritten agreement on printer paper. Temporary stay 1 week, ending next Friday. I made him sign it. He laughed while scribbling his name. Wow, you're really serious about this, he said. I'll frame it. By the end of the night, the bed was made, and I couldn't help but feel something else had been made too. A precedent. 2 days later, I found a mini fridge tucked behind a stack of boxes, then a microwave, then a small desk with a lamp. The transformation was slow, methodical, and maddening. When I confronted him, Dylan looked genuinely offended. I'm trying not to bother you, he said. This way I don't have to come upstairs to eat or make coffee. I thought you'd appreciate the privacy. Privacy? I repeated, my voice cracking between disbelief and fury. You're not supposed to be living here. I'm not living here, he said, with that smug, even tone that only people who know they're winning use. I'm just staying temporarily. Big difference. Then when are you leaving? He shrugged. Soon. The word soon felt like a trap door I'd just fallen through. Nights grew longer. I'd hear him pacing, gaming, laughing on voice chat until past 3 a.m. Once I came home and found 3 cars in my driveway. Again. This time a poker game in full swing downstairs. Cards, beer, smoke. I didn't think you'd mind, he said, shuffling. You were gone. The audacity was almost hypnotic. That night, I opened my evidence folder on my laptop. Photos, texts, dates. I typed, November 1st, unauthorized guests. 3. Alcohol on property. Noise complaint. Self-noted. Ethan sat beside me on the couch, watching my fingers tremble over the keyboard. You shouldn't have to live like this, he said softly. He's manipulating you, Claire. I know, I whispered. But my parents? They're not the ones paying your mortgage. He wasn't wrong. But guilt is stronger than logic when it wears the face of your family. By week 3, Dylan acted like the basement was his. I caught him once unlocking the back door with his key, earbuds in, singing under his breath. He didn't even notice me standing there until I spoke. I didn't text you permission, I said. He smirked. You should probably relax. You're wound tight lately. That night, I printed another notice, reminder of agreement. I taped it beside the house rules. The sound of tape peeling from the roll echoed like thunder in the quiet hallway. I could feel something shifting, almost like the air itself had changed. I wasn't just sharing space with my brother anymore. I was sharing it with something else, entitlement, dressed like family. The next morning, Mom called again, all honey and worry. Dylan says you've been distant, she began. Because he's breaking every rule we agreed to, I said. He's trying his best, sweetheart. His best is turning my basement into a studio apartment. She sighed, disappointed. You've changed, Claire. You sound hard. I wanted to say I sound tired, not hard, but the words didn't come. That night, I came home late. The basement light glowed under the door like a secret that didn't belong to me. I leaned my forehead against the wood, listening to the faint hum of the mini fridge, the click of a controller, and the echo of my own heartbeat. Something inside me whispered, "You're losing your home one small compromise at a time." And I knew it was right. There's a certain point when disbelief gives way to numbness. You stop asking how it got this bad and start calculating how to survive it. It was a Sunday morning when I saw it, a handwritten note taped neatly to the inside of the basement door. In blocky letters, it read, Dylan's studio. Please knock. I laughed out loud at first. A short, humorless sound that startled even me. But when I reached to peel it off, Dylan appeared at the top of the basement steps, toothbrush in hand. Don't, he said flatly. I froze mid-motion. I live here now. You can't just tear my stuff down. Excuse me? I said, turning fully to face him. You're what? He leaned against the wall, mouth full of foam and confidence. I looked it up. 30 days of continuous residence establishes tenant rights in this state, so technically, this is my place too. You'd have to evict me. I felt my blood turn to static. You're joking. He wiped his mouth and shook his head. You gave me a key. I've been receiving mail here. You even wrote up that little agreement, remember? That's proof. That agreement was for 1 week, Dylan. He shrugged. The law doesn't care what you intended, only what happened. I wanted to scream. Instead, I called the police. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes, polite and professional. They listened as I explained everything. How this was meant to be temporary, how he'd manipulated our parents, how he'd basically moved into my basement without consent. When they came back upstairs, one of them gave me the kind of sympathetic look doctors give when delivering bad news. Ma'am, he said, since your brother's been here more than 30 days, he's considered a resident. We can't remove him without a court order. My throat tightened. You mean to tell me I have to file for eviction? Against my own brother? I'm afraid that's how the law works, the officer said gently. This is a civil matter, not criminal. They left me standing in the doorway, the house suddenly feeling smaller, quieter, as if it too was bracing for what came next. The next day I found a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Hale, a sharp-eyed woman with gray streaks in her hair and a tone that could cut glass. You're not the first person to deal with this, she said, flipping through my printed photos and logs, but it's rare for it to be family. Lucky me, I muttered. She outlined the process. A 30-day notice to vacate, followed by court filings if he refused. Legal fees, at least $2,000 to start. He's technically right that he's established residency, she said, but he's also wrong in how he's exploiting it. We'll frame this as a holdover guest case. I nodded, though my stomach churned. How long will this take? 3 to 6 months, Patricia said, depending on how stubborn he is. Dylan's stubbornness could fuel a power plant. That night, I slid the formal 30-day eviction notice under the basement door. When I turned to walk away, the door creaked open and he appeared, holding the paper like it was an invitation. He smiled. Whatever makes you feel better, Claire. I'm not going anywhere until I'm ready. I wanted to rip it out of his hands, but I didn't. Instead, I hit record on my phone and said clearly, "This is me serving you with a legal notice to vacate my property." He smirked and raised his brows, mocking. You practicing to be a lawyer now? I closed the door in his face and stood there for a long time, breathing hard, trying not to cry. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. Your father and I heard what you're doing, she said without greeting. Her voice was trembling but sharp. You're really taking Dylan to court? Your own brother? Mom, he's not leaving. He's using me. He's struggling, Claire. You've always had everything together, but he hasn't been so lucky. Luck? I repeated. Mom, he planned this. He's not even looking for a job. He turned my basement into his apartment. Family doesn't treat family like strangers, she snapped. We help each other. Then why doesn't he live with you? That landed like a slap through the phone. She went quiet, then muttered, You know our condo's too small. Exactly, I said. So why am I the villain for wanting my space back? She hung up. By the end of that week, Dylan had a mailbox installed at the curb, a real one, bolted into the ground with his name neatly printed on it, D. Whittaker. When I saw it, I almost laughed. Almost. Then I took a photo for my case file. Ethan came over that night with takeout. You're shaking, he said as I showed him the pictures. I can't sleep, I admitted. He's down there right now, laughing with his friends like nothing's wrong. Ethan wrapped his arm around me. We'll get through this. Just document everything. You're not crazy. But as I lay awake later, staring at the ceiling, while the faint sounds of video games drifted up from below, I wondered if maybe I was. Because there was something unnatural about living on top of someone who thought they owned the ground beneath your feet. And for the first time, the house I'd fought for felt like a cage I was paying for. The day the cease and desist letter arrived, I actually laughed out loud, a hollow, incredulous laugh that startled even me. The envelope was thick, printed with the name of a lawyer I didn't recognize, Roger Fields, attorney at law, with an address in a strip mall next to a vape shop. The letter accused me of creating a hostile living environment, violating my brother's privacy, and committing an illegal lockout. Apparently, unplugging his mini fridge counted as property damage. When I showed the letter to Patricia, she didn't even blink. This is classic intimidation, she said. He's bluffing. Ignore it, but keep a copy. I tried to smile, but something about hearing the word intimidation made my stomach twist. That night, I stood in the kitchen, staring at the ceiling as faint bass beats thudded through the floorboards. Dylan was hosting again. His laughter carried up the stairs. That same easy, self-satisfied laugh he'd had since childhood. The one that always meant he was getting away with something. When I walked downstairs, I found 4 strangers sitting around a folding table, playing cards, beer bottles littering the floor. Dylan looked up casually. Claire, you want in? We've got room for one more. Get them out. Relax, he said. We're not hurting anyone. This isn't your house. He looked around, exaggeratedly, as if trying to confirm that, yes, the walls were in fact his. Feels like home, though. I turned off the basement light. He turned it back on. I unplugged the extension cord. He plugged it into another outlet. It wasn't about the light, it was about control, and he knew he had it. The next morning, the sound of a drill woke me. I ran downstairs to find Dylan installing a divider wall, separating the basement into two spaces, a bedroom and a living area. What the hell is this? I demanded. He wiped sweat from his forehead and smiled. Improving the property. I'm making it feel like an actual apartment. Might help resale value, you know? You can't just build things in my house. He shrugged. Technically, it's our space. I pulled out my phone and started filming. Say that again, I said quietly. He stopped smiling. Wow, you really are losing it. Ethan came over that evening, his calm presence the only thing keeping me tethered. You're documenting everything, right? He asked. Every second, I said, holding up my phone. But I feel like he's 5 moves ahead of me. Ethan frowned. Claire, he's not smart. He's just entitled. That's different. Keep doing what you're doing. You'll win. I wanted to believe him, but it was hard to feel like I was winning when I couldn't even walk into my own basement. The court date was finally set, January 15th. Patricia warned me it wouldn't be fast. Even if we win, she said, he'll have at least 10 days to leave voluntarily. If he refuses, we'll need the sheriff. I nodded, writing notes I couldn't read later because my hand was shaking. Meanwhile, Dylan doubled down. He started using my address for his mail, had packages delivered to my porch, and even updated his driver's license with my address. When I caught him bragging about it on social media, finally settled into my new place, basement life ain't so bad, I nearly threw my phone. He'd turned me into a villain online. In his posts, I was the cruel sister evicting her poor, struggling brother. The comments poured in. Wow, how heartless can you be? Family is supposed to help each other. She sounds like a control freak. Some of the names were people I knew. Old classmates, distant cousins. My own family was liking and sharing the posts. Mom even commented once, we're just praying for peace between them. Peace, what a pretty word for denial. One night, after another phone call from my mother, more guilt, more lectures, Ethan found me sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, staring at the eviction notice pinned to the fridge. He crouched beside me. You know this isn't your fault, right? I keep thinking maybe it is, I whispered. Maybe I should have said no when Mom first called. Maybe I should have just paid for a storage unit and avoided all of this. He shook his head. You can't predict manipulation, Claire. You can only stop it once it starts. I closed my eyes. I feel like I'm the crazy one. Everyone's acting like I'm some kind of monster. Ethan took my hand. You're not the monster. You're just the only one willing to say no. The following week, Dylan installed a router in the basement, tapping into my cable line to set up his own Wi-Fi network. When I canceled the service, he called the company pretending to be me and had it reconnected. That was when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just stubbornness anymore. It was a game, and he was enjoying it. The next morning, a new voicemail from Dad. Calm, clipped, disappointed. We're not taking sides, sweetheart, he said. But family shouldn't sue family. You're making this worse. I deleted the message. Then I deleted my parents' contact photos so I wouldn't have to see their faces when they called next. By mid-December, the basement door had become a border crossing. I installed a camera above it, just to know when he came and went. Dylan complained immediately. This is harassment, he said, standing in the doorway, the camera's red light blinking over his shoulder. This is documentation, I corrected. You're invading my privacy. You're living in my house. He smirked. For now. I didn't sleep much after that. Every creak in the floor sounded like defiance. Every night felt longer than the one before. Still, I kept going. Notes, photos, timestamps. I wasn't just building a legal case anymore. I was building a record of my sanity. By Christmas, my parents had stopped speaking to me. Dylan stayed downstairs, drinking and laughing, the bass line of his music vibrating through the vents like a taunt. Ethan spent the holiday with me in silence. No decorations, no tree, just 2 people eating takeout on the couch above a war zone. This will end, he said quietly. Maybe not soon, but it will. And for the first time, I realized he was right. Not because I trusted the process, but because I could finally admit the truth. This wasn't about family anymore. This was about survival. The morning of January 15th arrived gray and windless, the kind of day where even the air seems to hold its breath. I sat in the courthouse hallway, clutching a folder so thick it could have been a semester's thesis. Photos, receipts, screenshots, timestamps, every fragment of proof that my brother had turned my life into a slow-motion nightmare. Dylan Whitaker arrived late, of course, wearing a suit that didn't fit and a smirk that did. His lawyer, Roger Fields, the strip mall attorney, trailed behind him, carrying a briefcase that looked like it hadn't been opened since the Bush administration. When they passed me, Dylan gave a small wave. "Ready for the show, sis?" I didn't answer, but inside something clicked, a quiet certainty that no matter what happened, I'd already lost more than I could ever recover. In the courtroom, Judge Morales called the case, Whitaker versus Whitaker. The sound of my own name twice in a row felt cruel, like fate was mocking me. Roger stood first. "Your Honor, my client has been residing at the property for several months with the plaintiff's knowledge and consent. He's contributed improvements, maintained the space, and even provided furnishings that—" The judge held up a hand. "Furnishings don't establish tenancy, Mr. Fields. They establish clutter." A few people in the gallery chuckled. I didn't. Then it was Patricia Hale's turn. Her voice was steady, surgical. She laid out the evidence one piece at a time. Text messages where Dylan acknowledged temporary storage, the signed one-week agreement, my photos of him moving in furniture piece by piece, the video of me serving the eviction notice, the mail addressed to him after the deadline. Finally, she played a clip from my security camera, the one where Dylan installed his studio sign and declared, "You can't kick me out, I have rights." The courtroom was silent except for the hum of the playback. Patricia turned to the judge. "Your Honor, this is not a tenant. This is an opportunist exploiting family ties to secure free housing under false pretenses. My client has been patient. She's been kind, and she's been manipulated." Judge Morales nodded slowly. "I've seen many landlord-tenant cases, Ms. Hale. Rarely do they come with this level of documentation." She turned to Dylan. "Mr. Whitaker, you will vacate your sister's property within 10 days. If you do not, the sheriff will remove you. You will also be responsible for her legal fees." Roger opened his mouth, but she stopped him with a raised hand. "And before you argue, no, I don't believe you raised the property value by hanging a curtain divider." Dylan didn't leave on his own. On January 25th, 2 sheriff's deputies stood at my door, firm but calm, while Dylan packed up his things under their supervision. He made a show of it, sighing loudly, posting videos to social media, narrating every box he carried. "Thrown out by my own sister," he said into his phone camera, "all because I needed help." I didn't say a word. The deputies told me not to engage. But when he reached the door for the last time, he turned back and met my eyes. "I hope this house was worth losing your family over," he said softly. Then he was gone. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. It was the kind that presses against your ribs, as if testing how much peace you can handle after months of chaos. When I finally went downstairs, the basement looked like a storm had passed through. Holes in the drywall, cables hanging like veins, a burn mark near one outlet. He'd even carved his name, Dylan W., into the underside of a shelf. But the real discovery came an hour later, when I found a laptop half buried beneath a blanket. His laptop. I hesitated. Then I opened it. No password. Of course not. Dylan always believed in doors that stayed unlocked. At first, I expected nothing but games and junk files. Then I saw a folder labeled Backup Submanusepch. Inside were emails, dozens of them. Conversations with his friend Tyler, dating before his eviction. "Claire's such a sucker. I'll get Mom on my side. She'll guilt her into letting me stay. Once I'm in there for 30 days, she can't do anything. I looked up the law. Free rent for at least 6 months, easy." I sat back in my chair, shaking. Every word I'd feared, confirmed in plain text. I forwarded the emails to myself, then to my parents. I didn't add a message. I didn't need to. 3 days of silence followed. Then, a single text from Mom. "We're disappointed you invaded Dylan's privacy like that." That was the last message I ever received from her. A month later, I learned Dylan had moved in with them. He'd taken over their guest room, refused to get a job, and was already arguing about his space. When Mom called, crying, exhausted, asking if I knew a good lawyer for a situation with Dylan, I almost laughed. "I thought family doesn't evict family," I said quietly. She hung up without another word. The repairs cost $3,000. Legal fees, $8,000. Security system upgrades, $1,500. Therapy sessions, 1,200. But the real cost couldn't be measured. The sleepless nights, the paranoia, the weight of realizing that blood ties don't always mean loyalty. Patricia sent her final invoice with a note scrawled at the bottom. In 20 years, I've never seen a brother pull something this calculated. Don't ever feel guilty for protecting what's yours. Now, months later, the basement is different. Clean. Bright. I'm turning it into a home gym and office the way I originally planned. Ethan helped repaint the walls, and sometimes we joke that the smell of fresh paint is what peace actually smells like. Last week, I got a text from Dylan. Can we talk about getting my security deposit back from when I stayed there? I didn't reply. There was never a deposit. There was never a tenant. There was just a line I should have drawn sooner. People say blood is thicker than water. Maybe it is. But some stains never wash out, especially the kind left by family who mistake love for permission. So I've learned my lesson. Helping someone doesn't mean handing them your peace. And sometimes the only way to save yourself is to lock the door behind them.